Hi, I'm Nathan Townsend, and I've been living with HIV since 1984. I'm currently 68 years old. You know, thinking about the era, the time that I was diagnosed, it was actually September of 1984, when there was such hostility, stigma, fear. HIV had just come on scene, or so we thought, and there were rumors that it was just a gay disease. Actually a white gay disease. And I don't know what urged me or prompted me to go get tested. I was in a relationship and we were monogamous. So my lover and I went to get tested, and I think it was just an exercise of symbolism. And so got to the doctor, we both took the test, and the first time I got lucky, or unlucky, depending on your perspective. I tested positive and my lover tested negative. And it didn't make sense at the time because trust and believe, we did everything that you do in a bedroom, which goes to show HIV is not necessarily for everyone. It is actually hard to acquire, but some of us are more vulnerable. I think what made it a little bit more easier for me to deal with a diagnosis, it wasn't so much of a shock because the words that came out of his mouth was, well, I guess we'll just have to start using condoms. That was highly unexpected, because what you expect is that now you're damaged goods. What you expect is now they're gonna leave you. That didn't happen. And I think for that very reason, my perspective, my walk, my journey through HIV has been significantly different than many of those that were diagnosed at the same time and then years since. But what kept happening was portions of my social network kept disappearing. Friends that you would see out at the club started not being around. And everyone, it was a silent affirmation of what was happening when you didn't see someone anymore. You knew not to ask, but you also didn't have the opportunity to celebrate their life or to celebrate their journey to the next dimension, because many just disappeared. And so as I saw my whole system of social connection dissipate before my very eyes, the lurking question was always, when is it gonna be me? I had just gotten out of the hospital. I was in the hospital for 40 days. I had something called neutropenia, which meant that my whole immune system had collapsed. At that point in time, I did not know whether I was going to live or die. I had 4 T cells at that time, and ironically, I had been diagnosed with HIV 20 years prior to this event. So I went for 20 years without having any incidents or any kind of rocky road other than stigma, other than side effects of medications. So I moved in here and basically didn't know whether, I was going to survive. But the bright side is that it was just another challenge. It was another opportunity to grow. And I learned that, situations and opportunities come and you can do what you choose. You can choose to succumb, you can choose to wallow in pity, or you can choose to look at it, examine it, and grow from it, grow through it, and find out what your purpose and your destiny holds for you.
My life. Yeah. We got one life to live. I'm from over there, North Philly. So as
my music became my mistress, my muse. I started writing about mostly love songs. And when you think about it, I was writing same gender loving love songs. Songs from a man to the man he loved. Still to this day, that's not an area that we celebrate. That's not an area that we lift up. But in the 80s, I started writing. My first one was called Can You Remember When? In those moments, I was able to actually be my most truest form of who I was without having to make excuses, without having to explain, without having to apologize. No one knew I was singing to James. No one knew I was singing to Leroy or Larry or Henry or Harry or Barry. It wasn't important, but today it is. And so I was able to throw myself whenever I felt like I was losing myself, or whenever I felt like I needed to find myself, because there's revelation on paper. There are thoughts that you don't say. Do you realize that you talk differently than you write? My whole persona is different on page. And then taking that page and crafting it into song, and taking that song and forming it into voice is a whole different mechanism. And fortunately, that was my outlet. That was how I was able to deal with that. And then if I roll all the way back or up now to this day and this time, there's still there's still work that needs to be done with regards to that, because like I said earlier, we still do not celebrate same gender loving stories. There's not a plethora of stories that are identified as such, because those that are coining them, writing them, publishing them feel that if they make that, if they make it known, then it won't go far. And it's a shame that we exist in a society like that, even now. We get to the 90s, I'm 10 years into living with HIV, and they come out with new medication. It's called a cocktail. You know, we knew what cocktails were. Everybody was up for a good cocktail, but guess what? These cocktails were not like a kamikaze. These cocktails was not like any of the ones that I had known, because the night after, the day of, you went through all kinds of symptoms and all kinds of side effects. I had to start taking pills for my ills. And sometimes you couldn't remember which sequence or what was for what. There was one point that I was taking 14 pills a day. You know, now we tout these one pill wonders. That wasn't my blessing. That wasn't my opportunity. I was one of the ones that was heavily medicated. And you know, and I understand why many stopped taking the medication, because it was a horrific experience. You know, but I looked at what's the alternative? It's do this or die. It was just that simple. And unfortunately, so many chose to die. One of my lovers died on his birthday. Like, how significant is that? He was an addict. He smoked crack. He injected crack, but then he told me that medicine is toxic. I was like, dude, like really? I said, if I crushed this wall right up here and told you that it was some shit, you would snort it, but you won't take this pill. It was just ridiculous. And he's gone. Looking back, once again, I went 20 years before getting sick. But today, you know, when we talk about, now I'm currently working at NASM, where we're going out to colleges, when we're talking to people who are newly diagnosed. When there was a time that I didn't know if I would live past, say, 43. I never planned to be this age because I wasn't supposed to be here. And so someone asked me the question, is it easier or is it different? Or do the people now, because have the advantage of one pill, is it different? It is not different. It is not easier, because at the end of the day, without that one pill, they could easily be gone. So it doesn't matter how many of the regimen or how evolved medication has become. Am I glad that I'm a survivor? Am I glad that I can say I've been here living with it for 38 years and ain't no stopping me now? Am I glad about it? Hey, am I glad about it? Yes. Is it still barriers today? Yeah, mental, behavioral, emotionally. You know, HIV is a biopsychosocial disorder. It's not like the woman in the Bible who had an issue of blood, because yes, I do have an issue of blood, but it goes beyond that. Because people still, when we go to test people or offer testing, we hear things like, I ain't got that shit. We hear things like, oh no, I'm clean. And even being in that space, in that moment, are you saying that I'm not clean? Are you saying that I'm dirty? These thoughts still have to resonate and go through and travel through my psyche. And so there's a certain strength that you have to develop to realize that even dealing with kindred community, you still are dealing with people who have fears, who don't know enough about HIV, who have not been exposed to people living with HIV. So there is reason and cause to create normalcy. And how do we do that? By making conversations like this part of the normal chatter, the normal narrative. The more people hear it, the more they become accustomed to it. The more people see it, the more they become used to it, the more acceptable it becomes. It's the same struggle that trans-identified individuals deal with. People see who they are, but they don't know who they are. They see how they present, but they don't know them as individuals. Once you see their humanity, all of a sudden how they dress, how they act, how they present, how they show up, how they identify becomes secondary to who they are. In December of 2017, I decided, actually August of 2017, I had read a statistic that said 1 out of 2 black gay men in Atlanta would become HIV positive in their lifetime. I was in Philadelphia, where I've lived for 64 years, no place else. My mother died, all my aunts and uncles had died, and I started thinking, what's keeping me here? Am I gonna stay here till I die, or is there something out there calling my name? I instantly connected with an agency called Thrive SS, and something magical happened. I saw an announcement about a grant from Gilead that was going to be coming out for HIV and aging. And together with Malcolm Reed and Claude Everett, we began to craft a new narrative about what it was like to be living with HIV over the age of 50, because it is so significant. Because guess what? In 2020, half of the people living with HIV in the United States were over 50. Half. And guess what? Doctors are not prepared. They don't know what HIV over 50 looks like because no one got here before us. And now we're the legends and the historical significance of what it means and what it looks like to age and thrive while living with HIV. No one taught me love mapping to be gay. No one told me what it would be like being black, gay, and living with HIV. Nobody told me what it would be like being black, gay, living with HIV, and aging. Nobody told me. So I had to create my own path. And that's what we're doing. And that's why I'm here.